All right. Welcome, everyone, to another fantastic episode of Cassidy Theater and Company. I believe this is our 8th episode. Time is flying by in quarantine time, but we've been glad to share our Sunday afternoons with you to be able to talk with folks from all different aspects of Cassidy Theater, which included the youth theater program last week. And this week we have, I don't even think I need to give her an introduction. I think everyone knows her, but I am very pleased to be talking with Georgia Muttillo today. And before I bring her on the screen, I'll just provide a couple quick reminders. Number one, so this is live, so feel free to comment or ask questions in the chat box that is on the side of your YouTube screen. So if you have a question, we might pull it up on the screen to ask. Otherwise, as you can see scrolling across the bottom of your screen there is CassidyTheater.com. And if you are enjoying our conversation today and would be willing to donate, you can do it at our website and just click Make a Contribution. And we appreciate anything that you're able to give, as well as the time and talent of the folks that are on this show. So without further ado, let me pull on Georgia with me. All right, here we are. All right. Welcome, Georgia.
Hi, Katie.
It's good to see you.
Well, thank you. Good to see you as well.
Now, Georgia and I, if we were at the theater right now, we would be hanging out in the front lobby area, just shooting the breeze like we do.
Yes.
So
we've had many interesting conversations.
To say the least. Absolutely. But for folks who do not know Georgia, she is on Cassidy's board along with myself as vice president, and has been with the theater for how long now, Georgia?
Oh, well, I don't know how far back we want to go, but as far as a board capacity, it's been 12 years, but actually I have been with Cassidy Theater in some sort of support for, I would have to say, close to 20 years.
All right. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you first hear about Cassidy or Greenbrier, I guess I should say too? When did you first get involved?
I first heard of Cassidy Theater when my son was 11 years old, and he had attended a science camp one summer, and the following summer, because the science camp was too far away from where we lived, and trying to look for something closer, something, that was doable with my work schedule, and I saw a little blurb in the Sun Post, youth theater camp at Cassidy Theater. Well, needless to say, we signed him up, and the rest is history. So I was at first I was basically a driver for him, dropped him off at youth camp and, during the week in the summer. And eventually I was allowed to be part of his little circle in the youth camp. And my name was Mom for many years to many people at the theater. So then I did a little stage managing during some of the youth productions. And it just continued from there.
So you probably have a big soft spot for our parents of their kids who are in the shows and in the youth theater.
Yes, I do. I completely understand when they're waiting outside and anxious with them about getting them, leaving and seeing them on the stage and watching them grow. And it's actually, the youth theater is so critical to the arts and our community. I don't think that, enough is said about the importance of theater and having kids be able to participate in that programming, simply because, and I know I have said this many times, that, the curtain speeches, I think a lot of people think that, having their kids come to a theater and, learn about auditions or learn how to sing a song or learn lines is not necessarily what their goal in life will be as they grow up. However, the theater definitely does contribute, and that whole experience contributes to their development, in other areas of learning, in school and in the community and anything else that they may do, wherever their interest lies. So, yeah, so I do have a soft spot for the youth theater and the youth programming.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely agree with the whole idea of these skills that they can build for the rest of their lives, because I think adults would probably argue the same thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, and I clearly remember a mom. This was, many years after I was on the board already, and she brought her son to see a main stage show, and I happened to be front of house, and I did not remember her because it had been quite a while, and she walked up to me and she said, I just want to thank the theater for the opportunity and the programming, because she said that her son, after having taken those summer classes that he did take, blossomed in school. He had a lot of inhibitions, that normal kids have in school. And she said that she couldn't believe it was the same child the following school year. So it was just so nice to hear, because that ultimately is what we're there for. So.
Right. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think about, since you made mention to youth programs, we've obviously had some youth in our main stage productions in the last couple of years, Annie probably being the biggest one. And you helped put together this Koats for Kids campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And why don't you talk a little bit more about that and why that was so important to you?
I think that that was so important in so many ways. I think the fact that we had a group of kids from our youth program that wound up in I think 2 or 3 main stage shows, and the Koats for Kids was during Annie, and it was at Christmas time, and I think it gave the kids an opportunity, as well as the adults in the show, to be part of giving back to the community, not just by performing on the stage, but helping the community and meeting some needs that are critical, not just at Christmas time, but all year round.
Right.
And to see the energy and the excitement, and having, if you remember, we had the Coats for Kids actually span into for our patrons, anybody that brought a coat to the lobby during showtime, prior to show going up. I think we gave them discount for bringing in their coats, and it was very, very successful. And I think the kids took a lot of pride as well in bringing. Initially, the kids in the production brought so many coats. They kicked it off very well, and it was really nice to see them understand that there is a bigger, the community out there is very broad, and the needs are very deep. So it gave everybody a sense of really giving back, because we are given quite a bit as a theater as well. I mean, we're validated by having people come and be in our shows, having the audience there to support us. But it's so important for us to be able to always give back to the community in some form.
Yeah. And I know, because I was working on Annie too, like that coat box was just overflowing. It was amazing.
Yes. Yes. It was an exciting partnership. And I think that's something that, we have to keep in mind, and, for the future. And while we get through and move maybe to the other side of this pandemic, and be able to look at things, as far as, what are the community needs as we move forward into the future. So.
Right. So one unique thing, I guess, about our board in particular is not only do we get to do these types of fundraisers and be the producers on shows, but we also do front of house, as you alluded to. So that means things like selling the tickets, the concessions, 50-50 and all that. As you saw a comment come in, making the 50-50 raffle box has become your thing.
I guess.
Actually, I'm curious about that, like how that began. Is that just something you did for fun and it stuck?
I think that I really don't know where the birth of that and when the birth occurred. However, it was probably something that, Bob Stacer, our previous president, we would do the curtain speeches together. And I think it maybe have been a comment that Bob may have made during, to me, during the curtain speech. And I probably ran with it. And there it is, the 50-50, the 50-50 raffle shake. So.
Yes, I know long time patrons to the theater expect that now, basically.
Yes, they do. And as a matter of fact, there's patrons that, have front row seats, first and second row. And even on the days when I try to make it as short as possible, there's always that shout out, more. And it's rather surprising, actually. So
it's like a show within the show.
Yes. Well, yes, it is. It's funny that you should say that, because, when I think back of some funny things that have occurred over the years, we actually, a reviewer came to a show, and actually the curtain speech got a review. It was very positive, but and that obviously the curtain speech is not an intent, to be reviewed, but we found it rather humorous that a curtain speech was reviewed. So
yeah. See, then it's definitely part of the show.
There you go.
Right. Absolutely. So when you are working at the front of the house before these productions, and I know you try to come to almost every production, every show in the production.
Correct.
You're one thing that I know that you love and I admire about you is your ability to build those relationships with the patrons. So how do you kind of go about that? What is that experience like for you to be at the front of the house and interact with them?
I think that is probably one of the most critical pieces of being able to build those relationships. And I think it's important that we can't, we're living in a time where technology, social media, is a big part of our everyday lives. And it's a wonderful thing. It's part of helping us grow, no matter whether, it's community theater or other businesses and, that are, exist and provide services to people. But I think it's so important. And I grew up understanding my dad actually instilled, he owned his own business, and I had an opportunity to work for him, um, challenging as it may have been at times working for your dad. But I guess, if for a lack of better words, old school it's if you're going to serve people, you have to be able to build a relationship with them so that they continue to be your customer. So
Right.
he had provided me a lot of tips on how to go about doing that. But I think it's also in my nature, because I do, I'm provide a lot of customer service in my day job. But I think it's important to be able to make our patrons and the people that walk in to the theater for maybe the very first time, be welcoming them, listening to what they have to say, engaging them in conversation, letting them know our gratitude and how thankful we are for them being there. And I think those are important components to building relationships. But again, it's building that sense of community, no matter where they live. We have we have a mother and son that live in Erie, PA, that I have been season subscribers for many, many, many years. So there's a reason that they come back to Cassidy Theater and drive
Right.
that far to come and see our shows. And I think that's part of that engagement. We have to engage our patrons and people who come to see our shows and want to be there. I think that's important. They need to feel welcomed. They need to feel that they're valued, and that we're not just selling them a ticket and seating them and saying good night and hopefully we'll see you the next time. I think it just goes much deeper than that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's more of a customer experience,
Yeah.
rather than like a customer service come and go type of transaction.
Correct. Exactly.
For sure. We have a couple questions / comments coming in, but first I'll just highlight this because I like it. Ooh, shot on and off there. Thanks, Utah.
Thank you, Utah.
So, since you're on the board, but you also act. You've been in shows at Cassidy. That leads into this question: what was your first acting role? Where and when?
Well, it was many, 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 many years ago. My very first acting role in community theater was in Broadview Heights, in The Goodbye Girl. And I was in the ensemble. So that was my very, very first time on stage in community theater. And of course, it was part, I think I decided to audition because my son was also in the show and my son was encouraging me to audition. So I thought, oh my goodness, I hadn't been part of theater on stage since high school. So, I have 15 years of dance that I, experience. So I thought, well, you know what? Let's do it. So that was my first role on stage in ensemble in The Goodbye Girl, this 3-hour show that seems to never end. So,
oh no.
Yes, it's a long show. It's a very long show.
I forgot that you you've told me before that you've done dance for quite some period of time. I'm surprised that you've never tried being a choreographer.
You know, I never had the interest in teaching dance. I think when I first started out dancing, I was 5 years old. So I think when I reflect back, I think that dancing for me was creating my own little world where Georgia was very happy. It made me feel wonderful. It made me feel um, uh, it was another world for me. So I think that because it was so personal, I never thought of extending it into, being a choreographer. It was just something that I did because I loved it so much, and what it provided me. So,
Right. As the art should be, right?
yes, that's exactly, Katie. Exactly.
Absolutely. All right. One other question on here. So, what has been your favorite role on or
Oh,
off stage?
oh my gosh. Um, wow. That's a big question. As far as myself, as in the roles that I have been in over the years, I think it's the roles that really challenged me in terms of moving away of who I am as a person and being able to enter someone else's character and perform it and be able to um, have the audience understand it from however I was whoever was directing me, and also what I brought to the role. So I think if I quickly think off the top of my head, some of the ones that stick out, because I think every role has been wonderful, because it's basically what, you immerse yourself into a role. And so you have to there's no point in auditioning if you don't want to be in that role. So,
Right.
so I think one of the most memorable ones was actually the playing the doctor in Baby, that we did at Cassidy. It was a comedic role, and it was one scene. And then I had some other, things that occurred during the rest of the show. But it was absolutely hysterical. I enjoyed and the other thing is that, that was the first time I had met Bob Stacer in that show, and other people that, have been lasting friendships. So it was a moment where we had to actually stop dialogue for the audience to stop laughing so they could hear our next lines. It went on sometimes for a little while, but long. It seemed like it was long, but it was long in comparison. But it was fantastic. Anna in the Tropics. It's a show that was done at Cassidy. The plight of a Cuban family who owned a cigar factory in Cuba, and then came to the United States, and we're doing things from a business perspective, and there were other serious social elements that were involved in the show, in the theme. But playing the mother, that was extremely challenging role. She was the matriarch. Being in Dearly Departed and Dearly Beloved, that was in The Women. I loved the role in The Women. I played the mom again. There's some amazing roles that Plaza Suite playing Karen in Plaza Suite. That was a huge challenge for me simply because I didn't like the character of Karen. The character of Karen went as it was written in the script, went completely against my own grain of who I am as a person. So it was an amazing journey to do that role, and very rewarding, actually. So yeah.
Right. And you, just before COVID hit, were going to be in Plaza Suite a second time.
Yes, we were in rehearsal for Plaza Suite at Brecksville, and then COVID came along. So yeah, and it was interesting because different director and different perspective on the role of Karen. So I was excited about doing Karen again, even with some different thinking regarding Karen, which I was highly excited about. But yeah, so I was ready to reprise her. So
And hopefully you get to do in the future too.
hopefully, yes.
How many shows have you been in at Cassidy specifically?
Oh my goodness. My first show at Cassidy Theater was My Fair Lady, which was quite a while ago. But oh my goodness, I can't even, 10, 12? Yeah, so it's been quite a few.
Yeah. And I think that's great that you have the opportunity to do that while being involved in so many other ways.
Yeah, I mean, although there have been, there was a time where I was doing one show after another. I found myself rolling, almost a whole year of being in shows. And then I had to put the brakes on a little bit. But then I think, probably people, the actors in our theater community all know, I think, that are so immersed in theater, know that if there's a big period of time where you're not on the stage, you start to get this itch, like I really need to be up there rather than back here. So
yeah, it'll come back and bite you.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Another question here. Since you've been on the board of directors, have you always been vice president, or have you been in other roles on the board?
No, just I started out on the board before when the transition actually had occurred at Cassidy Theater, when we changed over to Cassidy Theater Inc. And after the changes in the city and the changes, for the theater. So I was just a board member. And then for the most part, I have been, in the role of vice president at Cassidy.
Gotcha. Yeah, which we've been glad to have you at the helm there.
Oh, thanks, Katie.
So I'm sure within that large span of time, there have probably been more than a handful of mishaps. I know we've joked and said that you could write a book about it, but are there any that we can say that stand out to you as kind of funny mishaps now that you're looking back at them, whether it was something on stage or something else?
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously we've had some great comical moments of mishaps on the stage, whether I was in a show or, as producer or, sitting in the audience and watching the show or whatever it was. I mean, we did Slipper in the Rose at Cassidy Theater, and I happened to actually be in that show. And during a big number, it was the entire cast was on stage, and the one of the stepsisters, or the person who was playing one of the stepsisters, I won't say who it was. We all know who it is, but so anyway, long story short, during the dance part of that number, their shoe flew off their foot in a high arc into the audience.
Oh,
And
no.
Sam Santora, who was in the show at the time, he was one of the guardsmen of the ball, so to speak, the Cinderella's ball, just calmly walked out as we were finishing the number, went down the steps with his staff and in his wonderful costume, and regally retrieved the shoe and brought it back up on the stage, and the audience just couldn't stop laughing. I mean, it was just, at that point, it was a beautiful experience at that point. But we've had a lot of mishaps. I think, lights losing power during a show, as we all know, that happened during Little Shop. Creating a moment in theatrical history that we will all never forget. That actually was amazing because the audience was completely involved in finishing the show on that. So, but there have been a lot of mishaps. Calling places, waiting to go up for the stage for the curtain speech, and we're delayed because there's an actor or actors that couldn't be found backstage, and we would be laughing about that. So, but yeah, there's been so many. I mean, over the years, I wish we would have kept track and documented everything.
Uh-oh, we better start writing that down now.
Yes.
A question on here, which is actually a question I have too. What show would you like to produce or act in? Like, what would you like to see on Cassidy's stage?
That is a difficult question because I'm going to answer it with the first thing that came to my mind. I think any show that we can reach our audience and make it memorable for them. I mean, I think that's bringing any show to the stage that will, that our audiences will leave with, oh my goodness, I can't believe, what I just experienced, or I can't believe, I came here expecting one thing and I'm leaving feeling amazing, so I think I often think about, because I think as actors, we think about shows, oh my goodness, I wish we could do that. So I could, I would love to be in that. Or I wish, we could do, something that's a personal favorite. But all too often, I think more of what can we bring to the stage that will really have an impact on people that are sitting in the seats. So I don't have one off the top of my head. Always looking for interesting projects. There's so much out there that, hopefully, in the future, as we know some of the Broadway shows and as things are being released off Broadway, we can, hopefully do some of those shows. But actually, for a long time, one of my greatest favorites is Les Mis. I would love nothing but to have that show on the stage. But that's the answer, I guess. So
I would love to see that at Cassidy. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Once things settle down a little bit.
A little bit.
Maybe more than a little bit.
Exactly.
But I know you and I, when we are working out in the front and helping out, and we usually go in to peek and see how the show is doing once it starts running. Is there any show that you remember that you never wanted to miss a moment of it because you just enjoyed watching so much?
Yeah, many shows. There have been shows that have had some remarkable moments that, whether they were musicals or not, um, uh, that, I would be sitting there and I'm like, wait, hold on, and run into the theater, because it was one of my favorite spots, or a song or a monologue or a scene, or, I think it's happened. It happens quite often. I think, as when you're producing and you're so involved in in all of those aspects, I think a producer immerses. I know you do. You immerse yourself in the show. And you begin to, you're a part of the show. You're not on the stage, but I think for myself, it's you're experiencing a show from beginning to end, and it's you are a part of it. So you fall in love with certain things for every show that you're producing or you're involved in. So it's exciting.
Yeah, I know you and I got the chance to work on Mamma Mia together last
Oh,
year. And I can always picture you running up and down the aisles dancing at the final number.
oh my God. Yes. Well, that show, the energy that was within those walls, every show, the energy from the audience, the energy from the cast, the music, of course, just you couldn't avoid, dancing and singing and immersing yourself in the music. And the other thing was that I think that was one of the shows, and that just allowed the audience to be able to do something that they normally wouldn't do in seeing a show or being an audience member. So that show gave people permission to enjoy themselves. All too much. I think all too often we see, audience member. I don't know about you, Katie, but anybody else that may be watching, it's sometimes you're on the stage, when you're in a role or in a show, and you're kind of going, oh my goodness, are we not doing what we set out to do? The audience doesn't seem to respond. The audience isn't, are they getting this? We start to question ourselves by how the audience is reacting. I think sometimes reminding ourselves that I don't think the audience understands they can give themselves permission to clap, to be responsive, not to an intrusive way, but to let which has happened, but to let the cast and let the people up on the stage know that they're there, and they're immersed in what they're watching. So yeah. But Mamma Mia was a memorable, and I will share that I think Mamma Mia was one of the shows that there was an audience member who was had some needs in her life, and I think she was with her parents or something where it was the first time that they had actually seen her respond to the level that she was responding at, with the music and what was going on in there. So that was rewarding,
Yeah.
to see, and And of course, it's music from, back in my day, I think we can say. So,
I love ABBA music too. Don't worry.
yeah.
But yeah, those moments where you get feedback immediately from the audience on something on a level like that, it's just beautiful.
Yeah. It fills the room. It fills the theater. And it's beautiful to be able to see people engaged at a level that you just would normally not see outside of the theater.
Absolutely. So before I go into our final question, I'll just remind everyone again, if you have had a good time listening to our conversation, feel free to donate to Cassidy Theater.
Yes, there it is. Oh, there
Underneath
we
there.
go.
Yeah.
Oh, here comes another one. You have another opportunity.
You could be my spokesperson. But click that make a contribution button, and every little bit helps. And I'll say for next Sunday, next week, we are going to have a mini Footloose reunion. So we did a mini Joseph reunion a couple weeks back. So mini Footloose reunion will involve Michael Goff, Alex Turner, Kayla Lemon, and Hannah Elwood. So a couple recognizable folks there who have amazing talent, and looking forward to catching up with them. But yes, so our final wrap up question, Georgia, is what are you most looking forward to when we can go back and do theater live?
Wow. Continue to create the momentum that we've been creating at Cassidy Theater. Looking forward to the future. I think, we're very focused on that. We're very much wanting to increase the members of our patrons and be able to bring in new shows, bring in shows that are familiar, but are bring to the forefront some of the things that are really going on in today's world. So those are the shows I think that I look forward to and putting up on the stage. And always I think that even though with this huge interruption in our theater world, it's always what can we do better? How can we do it better? How can we continue to provide the arts in our community and be part of, and I think I'm kind of a dreamer at times and say, I always thought of, wouldn't it be cool to open our theater community, and partner with maybe 2 other local community theaters and do this grand show, in partnership. But that's a lot of work and a lot of planning and a lot of details that would have to be worked out. But that's always, like, what can we do to expand not only our theater community and be able to be supportive to each other, especially coming out of, the going to the other side, of the pandemic, but also what can we do to now support our community and the members of our community, and the people that always want to come and see the shows at Cassidy Theater. So what can we do better and greater?
Yeah, lots of good strategic planning and new ideas
Yeah.
while we have the time to kind of sit back and think
Exactly.
about how we can move forward.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again, Georgia, for being a part of the show this week. It's
You're
been
welcome,
good
Katie.
to see your face.
Good to see yours, Katie.
And thank you for the folks at home who are watching and enjoying the show. We look forward to having you tune in next week. And otherwise, we hope that you enjoy the rest of this beautiful afternoon.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. We'll see ya.
Bye-bye.